You can't tell somebody that you care about them and have a frown on your face. It just doesn't happen. You can't tell someone, I'm not upset with you, and have just the wrinkles in your forehead, right? It doesn't work. The days of the red ink pen, they should be out. It should be about feedback. It should be about how many different ways can you solve the problem. The environment our students are living in today is not what you and I lived in. In a culture of empathy, leaders put other people first. Our decisions are guided by what's in the best interest of our teams and students and staff around us. Our emotionality in the moment of how we interact can really turn a person in one direction or another. Those check-ins for emotional support and letting others know we care, they truly matter. Believe me, to be the best, we have to have a community around us that will push us and help us step into our greatness. Hey, all you incredible leaders. And you may ask, Lisa, how in the world do you know I'm an incredible leader? Well, let me tell you, I know because you're here. You're investing time. You're here for the stretch. You're here to learn. And you guys, you showed up today. That's key element for leaders, showing up and ready for this stretch. Welcome to the Leadership and Learning Podcast. I'm so excited you are here. You guys, one key element in leadership is emotional intelligence. I want you to think about that. Our mindset is the catalyst for our behavior. Think about that. Mindset is the catalyst for behavior, but our behavior is the catalyst for the impact we can make. Yes, behaviors are the catalyst for the impact we can make. That's monumental for us, but it all starts with our emotional intelligence. Brene Brown in 2018 says, "Who we are is how we lead." Who we are is how we lead. You guys, as I was planning and preparing for this podcast, I've done a lot of retrospective thinking. I've had to back myself up and really consider, when did I start being reflectful about how my mindset impacts behavior and how my behavior has impacted the results that I get? Today's podcast is about diving into emotional intelligence, ensuring that we're managing the emotions of ourselves and our team to make sure we can navigate in such a way that everything we do, the behaviors that we have, impact and make a difference. You guys, I'm starting a leadership series. I'm kind of nervous about saying that. It's been a lot of work and a lot of undertaking, but I believe there are 6 essential habits that we all need to be effective leaders. I think they're critical in navigating our changing society. The change in education is monumental right now, and we have to dig deep to figure out what habits we need. So I've gotten lots of questions from you guys and feedback on leadership, and I've really been looking at this dynamic world, the changes that are evolving, trying to consider what I think are the 6 habits. So I'm super excited. You guys have inspired me. You have made me step back and dive in. So let's start this journey together. We're going to analyze and learn all these 6 habits. And as we go along, I think we're all going to step back in the journey and say, I'm not sure if that's one of the top 6, Lisa, of the habits for leadership. And maybe they're not. Or maybe you're going to have suggestions of ones we need to add to my list. But let's start with these 6. And today, the first one is emotional intelligence. You guys, this is the first habit on the essential habits to elevating our leadership. So let's unleash our leadership potential. Let's think about it. Emotional intelligence, because it is what drives everything. All right. Emotional intelligence is super critical for us as leaders because that's how we create this positive environment. It leads to productive schools and success for everyone. In each of our podcasts, you guys know it's all about 3, 2, 1. 3 points, 2 questions, 1 quote, and what's our action delivering on that behavior change. Our 3 points are ways that we can elevate and lead with strong emotional intelligence. Today, for each point, I've really been thinking about how I could make sure we're implementing on what our different points are. So today I'm going to start with why it matters, and then I'm going to give ways to implement. I had that as a stretch for myself because as I've been discussing these podcasts with everybody's been saying, Lisa, I love the strategies and ideas, but how can I get those across to my team? Well, I always start with the why. So today I'm going to give you why it matters, and then I'm going to give you suggestions for implementation. So let's start with point number 1. We've got to build authentic relationships that lead to an environment that's full of trust. You guys, why that matters? Obviously, authentic relationships with our staff, our students, and think about your broader school community. They all foster trust and open communication. When we have trust and open communication, the sky's the limit because then we have a community that's working together and relying on each other. The diversity of our thought, they're stretching ourselves, we're stretching each other. This is foundational to creating a school culture where everybody feels valued and supported. Isn't that what we're all looking for? Because when we have a school community where everybody feels valued and supported, the sky's the limit for student learning. So let's talk about how we can implement it now. You guys, there's plenty of ways, but a lot of it's going to require us as leaders to step back and be really introspective. First of all, you got to ask yourself, am I approachable? Not only by our peers that we get along with and we hang out with, but are we approachable to everyone? Are we approachable for our parents, our communities? Are we approachable by our students? Also, do we consistently listen to concerns? Or is it when we're comfortable? Or is it when we're having a good day? You guys, we've got to be an open door to the people in our school community because when we listen to the concerns as a leader, I know you're the right person for the job. I know you were meant to lead, but we have to be open to those challenges, the problems that we face, the concerns others have, so we can address them appropriately. We also have to be able to celebrate those moments. We have to acknowledge the individuals that are making a difference because if they're empowering our culture, if they're adding to the communication, if they are fulfilling an element that we need to develop trust, we need to affirm that. If you've got a strong leader on your team that calls a timeout and says, hey, this isn't the right direction we're going, we should never be frustrated. We should be grateful that someone was confident enough to say, you guys, we owe our team better. We should do better to create a better environment. Other ways to implement, we've got to begin showing empathy. That means having regular check-ins with our teams. And you guys, with the bandwidth so narrow on each of us, you've got to have a way that others are feeding you information. What about your administrative assistants? Could you have quick reminders from them when somebody's been out sick, family's been out for surgery, there's been a problem going on? Have them put a quick reminder on your calendar to check in with folks. I'm not suggesting that we don't think about our teams, but I am suggesting, and I know from reality, that we get super busy during our day. And those check-ins for emotional support and letting others know we care, they truly matter. Let's go to point number 2. Point number 2 for growing in our emotional intelligence is practicing self-awareness and self-regulation. I gotta tell you guys, for me, I need this in all caps, self-regulation and self-awareness, because sometimes I can show everything. All right, maybe not sometimes, all the time. My facial expressions say it all right? But it's really important that we're able to be self-aware and have that self-regulation. I'm gonna tell you guys up front, even for me, especially when I know this is a challenge, I'm a reflectful person. So after whatever event occurs, after a conversation, after something that's a challenge, I'll definitely go back and I'll reflect. I journal. I take real consideration of the things that I said. My goal, though, is to catch myself in the moment. To catch myself and to consider and regulate and be self-aware when it's happening in the moment. Man, it sure is easier to self-correct when we catch ourselves in the moment. I do that by thinking, how many times in a conversation am I saying, I, it's about me? That's when I have to stop and say, time out, I'm sorry. I am thinking from my perspective and I really need to hear from yours. Self-awareness, self-regulation is critical. And listen, I'm singing to the choir when I talk to others about this. But let me tell you why I think it matters for us as leaders. Leaders with high emotional intelligence are acutely aware of their own emotions. We're acutely aware of the impact that we can have on others by our decisions and our interactions with them. I want you to really hear that, because our emotionality in the moment of how we interact can really turn a person in one direction or another. It really can make a separation in the relationship that you have. We've got to consider our interactions and the emotions, our tone of voice, the facial expressions we have. You can't tell somebody that you care about them and have a frown on your face. It just doesn't happen. You can't tell someone, I'm not upset with you, and have just the wrinkles in your forehead, right? It doesn't work. We have to make sure that we're considering the interactions we have with others. The self-awareness, you guys, allows us to regulate our emotions, especially under stress. And you guys, I know I'm in schools every single day. I spent yesterday all day long at a large high school working with ELA teachers. I know the stress everybody's under. I hear it daily. But you guys, as a leader, if we can regulate our emotions, if we can stay calm in that moment, we can provide thoughtful leadership to help the people around us navigate and make decisions. And it will create a culture and climate where people feel valued and supported. All right. You guys, each of us, we have the ability to control what we think, what we say, what we feel, and what we do. Think about that. That is a huge responsibility on each of us. I control what I say. I control how I respond to it. I control what I do, the behaviors. I have to rein myself in and think about it in that moment and regulate that. Self-awareness and self-regulation are absolutely critical. Let's talk about ways we can implement. You know, when we're talking about self-awareness, it's really reflecting in every conversation. But I not only want you to reflect after, remember what I said, I'm trying to work on during, but I think the better option is to reflect prior. So when I know I'm going into a challenging conversation, I want to get my head in a space that says, okay, I've got to be calm in this situation. I know it's going to be stressful. I know the emotions are going to be high. So what can I do to proactively de-escalate the situation? Reflecting on any emotional responses is important. I think the other thing is, a lot of times, and I know I've been there and I've done that, when we're in a conversation and it gets heated, or we know all of a sudden that person is really upset. You guys, you can see it. You can see it in their body language, right? They get tense, the facial expressions, you know. Many times we're in those conversations. I don't know about you, but I know I have in the past. When that's happened, I'm trying to get out of that conversation as fast as I possibly can. I talk faster. I do anything I can to get out of an uncomfortable situation. But that's not leadership. That's not regulating our emotional intelligence. So when we see a person change, we have to stop and we have to say, you know what? I'm so sorry. Obviously, what I just said did not come out like I felt like it sounded in my heart and mind. Please help me unpack where we went in a different direction, because I can see your facial expressions have it changed. You guys, that's leadership. That's self-regulation. Stopping in the moment when you see the change in a person's perspective, their body language, their tone, their mood, just their overall disposition. We've got to stop and we've got to check in. You guys, also, we have to really think about the triggers and how we manage stress. If you know something, let's say if you know running late makes you crazy and stresses you out, then what are you going to do about that? Either first, you've got to set the alarm different and change your morning routine, right? Or whatever routine it is to run to the next play that you have or whatever appointment you have. But the other thing is if you are running late, and we've all had times we are, how do you calm yourself and manage the stress? Because it's not good for us to run late to a meeting and then be irritable because we are late. It's too late. You've already done it. Get over it. Step into that meeting, regulate your stress, regulate how you respond to it, and give your best energy to it. All right? Don't think about being late. Lean in, focus, and bring all you've got to that moment, because you can make up for being late by doing that. You guys, we also need to practice mindfulness, really being considerate about the way we approach situations, circumstances, mindfulness around us, being in tune. You walk into a faculty meeting and you see some people in a corner that are having a heated conversation. You walk into a classroom, you see a student isolated in the corner by themselves. You see a child in the hallway that's upset. You see a student in the hallway that is slamming their books. We've got to be so mindful about our situations. And you can stop and say, good gracious, Lisa, what we have on our plate's just too much. I get it. It's a lot. But you guys, we stepped into the leadership role because we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to impact the future of our country. We wanted to inspire students for tomorrow. And we can do that, but we've got to be super mindful of the individuals that are around us and what they're going on, and pay attention to their body language, their tone, and how they're interacting. You guys, ways we can interact and ways we can implement this self-awareness. Let's talk about a few. I've already mentioned being very reflectful. Journal write really helps you after this situation. Obviously, if we journal enough, we're going to find out the triggers or the stressors that impact how we respond to things. But certainly being reflectful after every interaction is going to help. You guys, those trusted colleagues you have, seek feedback from them. They'll tell you for sure, especially the ones that are the mentors in your life, the ones that have really come alongside you, encouraged you, and believed in you. They're the ones that care so much about your success. They're going to be honest with you. People that want you to be successful are always going to be true to you. Okay? It is a factor that you can trust. Also, making sure that we step back and say, did I follow the steps of being very thoughtful in that interaction? Was I considerate of the others, individuals, personalities? Was I considerate of what their filter may be? Was I considerate of what they may be thinking? Try to pose every situation to yourself prior or after when you're reflecting, and think, did I really consider everybody else? You guys, I talked about a community. You guys, for us, having a community around us is essential. A community that is real with us, that will help us grow in this area of self-awareness and self-regulation, is essential. I want to be the kind of leader that others hold me accountable. I want to create a rapport with others where they know I'm open to that accountability. You got to ask yourself, do my friends, my peers, my mentors, do they really believe I want to be held accountable? Because if not, they know. They'll say to themselves, I could say it all day long and they're not going to listen. How many times have you heard that? Or how many times we've thought that about somebody? You guys, you got to check your hold cards and say, am I open to the feedback? Because if you are, that's where learning can exponentially go up. Self-awareness can increase, and self-regulation will just be part of your way of life. Believe me, to be the best, we have to have a community around us that will push us and help us step into our greatness. A strong community, you guys, amplifies our potential. Think about that. A strong community can amplify our potential. That's amazing, but it does. They enhance everything we do, providing that emotional support that we need, the intellectual support, the professional support, the encouragement, the cheerleaders, the you got this, I know you can do it. That's the kind of community we need. But we also want the community that says, hey, Lisa, you need to call a timeout. I think you need to go back and readdress the team today, because your tone was not what these teachers needed right now. They're tired. They're exhausted. You need to be an encourager. You need to be empathetic. You need to change your tone. You need those kind of people around you, because you guys, with that kind of community, our achievements, our successes are going to be amplified in so many ways that the ripple effect is going to be amazing. Point number 3, we've got to foster a community of empathy and resilience. That's a mouthful, right? Empathy and resilience. Man, and I know when I was working on this, you guys, I struggled because it's really a challenge for us in the culture and world we live in to even think about those two words. Think about it, empathy. Man, we're not seeing a lot of it around us, right? Whether it's on the media, whether it's, dang, I was driving today and I was hesitating at a light and the guy behind me just kept honking. No one, we have patience of a gnat these days. We have got to create a culture of empathy and resilience. Why does this matter? You guys, promoting empathy and resilience as a leader helps your staff, helps your students, helps the people around you to manage the stress we've been talking about. It helps them embrace what's going on, creating a culture in your school that's supportive, that's cohesive, an environment where students feel embraced, where they can engage in the learning that's happening. You guys, empathetic leaders can identify the emotional challenges. But you know what? I had to stop. I'm going to slow down right here, right now, because I move so fast. Think about that. Empathetic leaders can identify emotional challenges, but we can if we're moving too fast. We can if we're speeding through the day. You have to be able to slow down. You've got to regulate your time. You've got to regulate the moments that you have with the peers. You have to regulate and just consider the time you're giving to the teachers, the staff, and the students in your school. You guys, when we address our emotional challenges face on, head on in a school, we can foster a community of understanding. And you know, heaven's sake, schools could be the bar for our world. In a culture of empathy, leaders put other people first. Our decisions are guided by what's in the best interest of our teams and students and staff around us. So how can we implement this? How can we do this? You guys, we have to model empathy by recognizing the different diverse needs of our staff and students. That's really critical. We got to listen. We've got to be that open door I talked about earlier. We also have to create a community that's flexible. That's hard for us because many of us that have been in education forever, we've been driven by a bell-to-bell structure. We've been driven by moment to moment. We've been driven by a curriculum, scope, and sequence and everything. But that's not how our world works now, not at the pace we're working. We've got to realize flexibility has to come in to our school environments. And as a leader, that will open up an emotional environment that's opening and supportive to our teachers and students. Also, we have to create programs that support the well-being of our students. That social emotional learning, you guys, it's not just a flippant word we should throw around. It's not just a phrase that's out there because it's the buzzword of the month. You've got to really check your hold card. Are we providing social emotional learning opportunities for our entire teams and students? Some of this could be as simple as just checking in with your students, finding out if a student is struggling academically, just checking in with them. Are you okay? How can we support you? What do you need? What would foster your learning better in this classroom? The same with your teachers. Other ways to model empathy in our schools. You guys, it is really about considering the whole team. We've got to acknowledge the differences that are amongst us, and we've got to model how even with differences we can get along. Does that also ring a bell? It's crazy because our students are not always seeing that in the media, in the world that we're living in. But in the school environment, you guys can create that culture where differences can exist, that differences can be flourishing to the environment because we can embrace the diversity. You guys, the environment our students are living in today is not what you and I lived in. You guys, living under the microscope of social media, the little to no accountability, the accountability that students face under social media. It's a distraction. It's a drain. It really puts immense pressure on them. And we have to be emotionally in check with students. And we've got to make sure we're supporting them in a way that loves them through our school and accepts them for who they are. Ways we can implement this, you guys, encouraging open dialogue about mental health in our schools. making that a priority. We also need to celebrate the small victories where we are being a resilient community. So many things are happening. And you know what? In the school communities, every day there's a celebration because we're coming together to support resilience. We're coming together to support the challenges our students and families face. We need those to be the headlines of the difference that are taking place. You guys, it's there. We just have to celebrate it. Other ways, there are plays that you can dedicate spaces in your school, wellness rooms for your students and staff, places where the staff can just relax and regroup. These create opportunities for the staff to breathe, settle before they regroup. It could be a really stressful class, and sometimes your staff just need that window, a snack. I've seen some that have popcorn machines, seen some that have lounges, couches. We've got to go back and think about where these spaces are. Spaces for students may include walls for them to paint, materials, music, anything that we can do to give them a break from the day, because you guys, the stress in the schools is one thing, but many of our students are coming with baggage from home, and we are the safe space for them. So we've got to make sure we provide opportunities for that. Last but not least is certainly creating an environment where communication can thrive. You have to ask yourself, do my students and staff feel comfortable communicating with us at school? What forums do I have? Is there a way they can feedback anonymously? Is there surveys that I take every so often to check in with them? Do I have counselors that are communicating with them? What is the communication process when anybody is stressed out or in a way that they just need to reach out for some help or for somebody to conversation? You guys, I shared that empathy and resilience were critical, okay? But now let's think about resilience. I've talked about the empathy, but you guys, resilience means we really need to grow and step into our growth mindset. Resilience is closely tied to all the challenges and how we overcome them. It's that grit factor, the learning, the perseverance that I'm talking about. It's sticking to something and saying, we're going to get it done. But as adults, you guys, we have to model that for our students. We have to model, they have to stay with it. You guys, a growth mindset reinforces the belief and it encourages students that they can do it. They can grow through it, they can improve, and that failure is not final. It's just a setback. But you guys, the potential is great and the opportunities are great if we do it over and we try again. Growth, evolving, learning, all of this should be embraced. All of this. The days of the red ink pen, they should be out. It should be about feedback. It should be about how many different ways can you solve the problem? How many different ways can you come up with something different based on the discussion we have? You guys, it's about growth for our students and the evolution of learning. How can we implement this and promote the growth mindset? We've got to celebrate the effort, the drive that the students have, the dedication that they have to learning. We have to celebrate when the students are voraciously reading text that we're super excited for them to discuss. We've got to recognize and reward perseverance at a level, whether it's academic or non-academic within our schools. Perseverance should be embraced and celebrated. By modeling empathy, by prioritizing social and emotional learning, creating safe spaces for communication, fostering a growth mindset, and supporting all the well-being initiatives we can. You guys, school leaders, by doing all of this, you are creating a school environment, one that will nourish, support. It will allow your educators to flourish and create a culture where learning can thrive. It is the cornerstone of student and staff success. Think about that. When we have an environment where everybody feels supported, where everyone feels safe, when everyone feels heard, the sky's the limit for what we can do. The sky is absolutely the limit. You guys, that will create the most connected school environment, one you can celebrate, one you can be proud of, and one that will put you on the map because people will want to talk about it because you are leading in such a way that creates an open door and an open space for everybody to learn. 2 questions. What are 2 questions for today? One of the ways I shared with you that you could begin implementing change to address empathy and resilience on your campuses was to really think about the changes you could make. What is the action you can begin to consider? What do I need to do to make a real difference for me as a leader to open the door for empathy and resilience growth? Number 2, what habit can you start right now? Think about it. Creating a habit. What habit can you start right now that will increase and strengthen your emotional intelligence? Give you a quote every time, or one quote this time. Emotional intelligence refers to the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in the relationship with others. Daniel Goleman. You guys, our reflection from today are 3 points. You guys, to embracing our emotional intelligence. Number 1, let's build those authentic relationships. Find your community. Number 2, self-awareness and self-regulation. And number 3, how can we create a school that embraces empathy and resilience of all? You guys, learning should equal behavior change. So what will be your actions from today's podcast? I want us to take a step back. I want us to think about the emotional intelligence. I want you to consider the community around you and consider, are you creating an environment that's resilient? Are you really stepping in and being reflectful as a leader? I want you to think about how you model as a leader that emotional intelligence is a priority for you. I want you to consider your community and lean in. Ask them questions. Be vulnerable. Ask them how you are emotionally intelligently being reflectful and not triggering conversations of others. Ask them if you're a good listener. Ask them if you're paying attention to the body language of others, the tone when you're in meetings. You guys, thanks so much for joining me on this first in our series of the 6 habits that every leader needs to elevate their leadership in this dynamic and changing world that we face today. Please join me in our next podcast where we're going to continue the discussion on emotional intelligence, but this time we're going to start talking about overcoming adversity. And heavens knows we all face adversity all the time. Remember, you're absolutely amazing. You matter, and you're in the role that you are meant to be. Thank you so much for joining me, Lisa Spain, for the Leadership and Learning Podcast. I hope you have an incredible day.